Hello everybody, this is Blaine again, and I hope everybody is having a good Monday so far. Coming at you guys with class number 7 here for our online judging series. We're going to have a class of breeding does, a really nice class that I think would be valuable for you to use for a reasons class. One thing I'll say before we jump into these breeding does is you always want to think, kids sometimes think that goats are really, really difficult to evaluate and even more difficult to talk about and discuss when it comes to reasons and terminology and things of that nature. And the thing I'll say to keep in mind is you can judge these things and definitely talk these things a lot like sheep. They can use sheep terminology. Really, it correlates well with the goat side of things. And so when you talk about breaking these down, you talk about coming to a placing and then obviously talking them, I think you just got to remember you can judge them and certainly talk them a lot like sheep. So don't be afraid of goats. You should think they're fun, and they're certainly fun to evaluate and then talk in a reasons format as well. So this will be class number 7, breeding does. Here we go. So here's doe number 1. Doe number 2. There's doe number 3. And doe number 4. So here's your look at all 4 does. You'll want to stop here, get you a placing, and we'll go back and we'll discuss through these things and get it official and some cuts. Okay, so we go back to doe number 1. Again, I want you to think about the big picture and just initial impression and really don't veer too far away from that. I think your initial impression of this one should be awfully good. She's one that if we talk about pattern in terms of the way that she's put together, she's really good in that regard. Super feminine and upstanding through her front 1/3, really strong behind her blade, behind her shoulders up high. She transitions back into a long level hip. She's one that looks like she's round-bodied, good in terms of her underline, really shallow-chested and good in her underline progression. She's a big-footed, stout bone doe. I don't think she falls short when it comes to power and dimension here, and so one that I think really covers a lot of the things that we're looking for when it comes to a breeding doe. If I had to get a little bit critical on her, she's a little bit hook-legged on her rear too. Maybe she wants to turn out there on her right rear leg. Maybe she could be a little square and more comfortable in the way that she set those down. But again, I think she's really good up front, awfully feminine and good looking from the side. Definitely comes with the right kind of body shape and power that we're after in these breeding does. Really nice female to start things off. We go here to number 2. Number 2 is one that I think if you're talking good things first, she's really feminine and long-necked up front. She's a long, extended female, long-bodied. She's one that I think has some shape. You can see in terms of her lower stifle there, she does have some stifle shape. Looks like she probably has some shape up high. She's one that's relatively good looking from the outside. We can appreciate the presence that she has, especially, again, through her front 1/3. Don't really question her body shape here. I think you can see she probably has a round body shape and don't question her much there. I guess if I was going to get critical on this when it comes from a build standpoint first, she's a little bit off behind her shoulders there up high, a little round out of her hip. Maybe she's a little straight in terms of her rear leg, and then when you study her front skeleton, I think she's a little bit straight-bladed, almost over at her knee, and certainly could use a little more cushion and set to her knee there up front. I think if we study her too, she's a little bit frailer, maybe a little flatter and narrower, especially if you get right in behind this particular female. Maybe not as opened up as what we'd like to see, but again, relatively good looking from the side. Has a decent presence up front. I think she has some body shape and certainly just some shape in general, but maybe some build pieces. Maybe needs to be a little bit more pried apart off both ends to make her ideal. So then we go down to doe number 3. And again, I think, if you just go off initial impression, you try to keep things big picture, there's an awful lot of good in this particular doe. We'd want to call her the dark caped doe. That could be a good ID on her. And I think the first thing I notice about her is just awfully broody in terms of her center body. She's really big and round and bold in terms of her center skeleton. From a structural standpoint, especially in terms of her rear leg, really good in the set to her hind leg. You have to appreciate that particular female. Really, really nice set to her rear leg. Good bodied, very feminine, and good looking through her front 1/3. Super long neck female. And she's one that looks like she has some substance. She's big footed, she's stout bone. Looks like she's got some shape there to her lower stifle and her upper hip. If I wanted to get a little critical on her, maybe she's pushing forward in her breastplate just a little bit. Maybe she could have a little more set to her blade and her shoulder there up front. And I'd like to just stretch her out a little bit. She's a little bit short-bodied, a little off behind her shoulder up high. To make her ideal, you can certainly stretch her out a little bit. Maybe make her a little bit taller shouldered. But again, that's an awfully nice female, really good looking, good bodied, and has her ideal hind leg set in that particular doe. Then we go to doe number 4. Doe number 4, again, hits me as broody. Hits me as a very big, bold-bodied female that looks like she has some stoutness and some width. Looks like she's pretty big hips. Looks like she's pretty big forearm, maybe pretty wide-chested doe. One that I think has power and dimension, certainly has body. All of my issues for her come from a design standpoint. I think she's a little open-shouldered, kind of wants to turn out up front a little bit. She's off behind her shoulder. She's round out of her hip. Needs to be more consistent in her top line. Her hind leg set needs to be a lot better. Looks like she hawks in, gets kind of up underneath herself in terms of her rear leg. Certainly like to make her a little bit better in that regard. So build and structure, maybe want to make her a little more female-like in her presence from the side. Build and structure is where her issues come to play. But I do think she has a bold body type. I do think that she looks like she has some power, maybe some dimension, but man, build and structure is a big question mark on this particular doe. So as we bring them all here to the table, and we think about, how this class breaks out, I think you've got an awfully good top pair in 1 and 3. I think those females are really, really high quality females that I think offer some trade-off too, and I could see them going either way depending on what your personal preference goes for. So a really, really nice top pair, no doubt about it. The differences between that pair, I think that one's a little stronger behind her blade. I think she's longer and leveler hipped. To me, she's better in her blade and knee shape there up front, and just a little more extended, a little more stretched out. I think the advantages with 3 lies in her hind leg set. She looks a lot more ideal in the set to her rear leg, and she just looks very maternal. It really exemplifies maternal function if we're talking about just her body type and rear leg structure. Really have to appreciate that, especially when she can combine it with that good look up front. But a very nice top pair that I can certainly see going either way. I think the middle pair is busted wide open. Don't think you need to switch the middle. That's where your biggest cut's going to be. The bottom pair is somewhat interesting. I guess, to me, I like the feminine presence and the look and extension that comes with the two doe, realizing she has some build issues herself. I just think 4's build and skeletal problems are a little bit too much for me to handle, even though she looks like maybe the little bit stouter doe, maybe it's a little more wide and dimensional, that bottom pair. So we come to an official and think about how this class breaks down. I think, for me, I come to an official placing of 1, 3, 2, 4, and I cut you 2, 7, and 4. Again, very, very close sort up top. 2 females that easily sort up. I just like that extra extension, youthful design that comes with 1. So, but I'd cut you 2. So if you'd like to start 3, I see no problem with that, and certainly wouldn't have an argument there. The middle pair is not close. Need to tie into the rounder rib, better pattern doe that easily doesn't fall short when it comes to power and dimension, and that's 3. The bottom pair is a little more interesting, certainly not cut as hard as the middle pair. I just think in the end it makes sense to tie into the more feminine featured female. It's a little more youthful, taller shouldered. Her build issues I can certainly accept a little quicker in comparison to the 4 doe. So a very nice class. Again, remember, when you're talking these things, talk them like sheep. Use that sheep terminology. Stout skull is a good thing to really incorporate in these goats. Just thinking about that moving forward. But again, very nice class. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks.